And thank you all for being here today. I am grateful for the opportunity to be moderating this panel, and especially to be up here with these lovely, successful young women, and to be a part of this conversation that started at 8 this morning for some of us, and has continued on throughout the day. But just to be able to listen and learn, especially from the ladies that were part of the panel earlier, and I'm hoping that the conversation that we have up here today will be encouraging to you and inspiring to you, and most of all, that you will not feel alone wherever you are in your career or in your personal life, that you'll realize that we all share the same challenges, the same joys, and we all share the same passion to want to succeed. So here we go. We're going to, as Dr. Saunders said earlier, we're going to sail flat out on this thing.
Out.
All right. Well, my name is Molly Barrows-Vygotsky, and I work for the Levin Papantonio Law Firm in media and marketing. I started my career in Pensacola working for Channel 3. I started as a beat reporter, worked my way up to anchor. Then I got married and I had a baby, and I felt like that nighttime shift made it too hard for me to see my little girl, and that was the more important challenge to me at that point. I felt like I had been a success in the career that I had spent 18 years working on, and my next goal was to be a successful mother, and I felt like to do that I needed more balance. So I made a change in my life to take on a different job. And I think that you're going to hear similar stories from these ladies up here today. They're in different parts of their life, different walks in their careers and in their personal lives. And I would love to start with Allison Westmoreland. I had the pleasure of meeting Allison several months ago. One of the things I do on the side is I write articles for Bella, and that has been very inspiring for me because my real love is to be a writer. And what I found when I interviewed Allison is that she was a kindred spirit in many ways. She's a very genuine person. She is from Jay, Florida, and her first choice in life, her career path, did not turn out like she planned, as she's going to tell you. And I think that a lot of young folks especially will relate to her and what she has gone through and how she got to the point where she is now. So she didn't need to say anything else more about herself. I can tell you all about Allison. No. But Allison, let's start with you. And how did you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got to that position.
Okay. Well, I'm director of the Pensacola Beach Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Information Center. I originally went to school at the University of Alabama and graduated with a degree in fashion merchandising. So I moved to New York City right after graduation and was looking for a job there. And then in the midst of job searching, I got a phone call that basically changed my life. You know, my mom was really sick, and so I had to come home. So basically, moving home immediately, then I didn't know what I was going to do as far as career-wise, because the whole fashion industry thing kind of just wasn't my priority anymore. I wanted to be home here in my hometown with my family. So the first thing I started doing once I felt able enough to start job searching was to network and start reaching out to my friends, family, anyone, let everyone know that I was looking for a job. And that's how I got the job at the chamber. Is one of my really good friend happened to be hiring and knew that I was looking for something. So I think one of the most important things is to be open to all opportunities. So that's
absolutely
the best thing I've learned.
Director of the Pensacola Beach Chamber of Commerce, which is no small feat, considering how important tourism is to our area. Yes. Not just the businesses that are out there, but also the new faces that come to visit every year. You want to leave a good impression on them. And to tell you a little bit about Allison, her mother was very, very ill, and she passed away within 24 hours of her getting back home. So she went from, my career is going to be New York, I'm going to build a career in fashion, to, I got to get home and see my mom. Oh my gosh, my mom has passed away. My normal support system is gone. I need time to rebuild myself personally and professionally. And so I think when she talks about opportunities, she was not only looking for an opportunity to stay and find something that kept her entertained, but also she could build a career on. And did you ever expect that it would be in this sort of business?
No, absolutely not. I had no idea I was going to be so happy where I am now, and just have met so many amazing people who have continued to offer so many opportunities for me.
Absolutely. And Ashley, Ashley and I have been friends for a long time, and I remember when you worked at the United Way.
Yes.
And it was a career nonprofit, which is really your heart to a great extent. Now you work for Baptist. Yep. And you worked your way up there from marketing, and then you made some changes there as well.
Am I on?
Yeah.
I've done
You're
it.
You're always on, girl.
Am I on? I'm real loud, so I was really scared I was going to blow your eardrums out, to be honest with you. So like Molly said, I've been at Baptist now for about 12 years. You know, Molly and I met because when you're in the public relations industry, you really have to make good relationships with folks in the media. But, a lot of the panel earlier talked about relationships and the key to that. And the thing about Molly and I, in terms of that relationship, granted it started with my work, it was very genuine. You know, there's something that, and even my team that's sitting back there today, there's something to be said about those genuine relationships in terms of not only how it affects your work, but where it takes you in life and how it does develop and change around you in terms of being a woman and dealing with a lot of things we face, having children, going through marriages, going through, not me, but going through divorces. It happens. And so it's funny when you talk about being a nonprofit, you know, my very first job, my role right now is I'm director of outreach, strategic outreach for Baptist Healthcare, and really in short form, it's business development, physician engagement, and leadership. And I never thought in a million years I'd be doing this job. One, it didn't exist 5 years ago. The last 2 or 3 jobs I've had at Baptist didn't exist when I started in 2006. And so you just never know where it's going to take you based off of your resources and mentoring, every way you can get engaged. Sherry Hartnett is actually the reason why I'm at Baptist. So I worked in the nonprofit sector doing public relations, started out at ARC Gateway. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with ARC. They're a phenomenal place. Public relations there, did public relations United Way. Sherry was on the board of directors at the United Way of Escambia County, and I had the luxury of working with her doing the marketing for United Way, and she called me one day and she said, hey, I've got this job coming open over in marketing for a public relations coordinator. You got your feelers out there? You know anybody be interested? I'm like, she's right here on the phone. But I get it. Sherry was like, oh my, you know, she knew how passionate I was about United Way, and the thought was, oh my gosh, you would actually want to leave. And you know, when you're changing jobs, and I know we'll get in that in a little bit, you don't ever want to think about leaving a job. You're simply going on to another chapter, because United Way remains dear and near to my heart. So does ARC Gateway. And so you can become an advocate in a different way. But yes, Molly, been at Baptist now for 12 years. I've had 5 different positions. I've worked in marketing. I've worked in operations. I've worked in business development. It's kind of like whatever they'll throw at me next. And so just really enjoy it, have had a good path in this community, and this community is what makes me churn at the end of the day, and I think that's same for you, Molly, and probably for most of us up here, actually.
Absolutely, and it is dealing with those job changes, you know, finding that first job, and let's talk about flesh that out a little bit more. Chantal, you're in property management. Was that initially what you had planned to do?
No. My undergraduate degree is in criminology. I went to Florida State, so I was like all about community, helping the community, and going forth in that area. But I have grown to love it. It's something new. I watched HGTV, honestly, and that's why I was like, oh my gosh. I met Nicole St. Aubin. She's over here. She's one of my supervisors, and yeah. But so I met her, and I was presented with the opportunity, and I went with it. I started off as an intern. I worked with her mom, who's the broker and owner of Realty Masters. I was the executive assistant to her, and then I became a property manager. That means I had to get a sales license and become a realtor. So that was a whole different background.
A long way from criminology.
Yes. So I did that, and I worked from being a property manager to an office coordinator, and now I'm in the marketing department. I've been doing that for 2 years. All that is totally different than criminology, but it has helped me as a person and both levels of professional and also just personal. So I appreciate the opportunity that I've been given to learn, even though it wasn't something that I went to school for and got a degree for. But it's been very valuable to me.
Jennifer, what advice would you give? You also have made some amazing career choices. You worked for the Pensacola Chamber, now you work for Gulf Power. And what advice would you give to those folks who may be thinking, how am I going to get that first job? Do I pursue that, or do I take what opportunities in front of me? Do I wait for this narrow, if you will, this narrow selection of jobs that I feel like I want, or this career path that I want, or do you take what's in front of you?
I would say my journey was one where I had to think critically about the season of life I was in at the time and how I could capitalize on that season to really take every opportunity to be curious and to explore. And so I think back to when I was here at the University of West Florida, and I did 2 internships, both that I knew were unpaid at the time, but I did everything I could to make it work because I had that deep curiosity to really figure out where did I feel most called? And the only way for me to really uncover that and to discern that was to just roll up my sleeves and do a little bit of it. And so through that process, I did a lot of informational interviews as well. That was one of the best pieces of advice that my dad ever gave to me, was seek out every opportunity to learn, be a sponge and soak it up. And so through that journey and building those relationships and building your professional brand along the way, opportunities sometimes end up presenting themselves to you. And so for me, what I realized through that, I was working as a receptionist at a hair salon downtown here while I was going to UWF. And the other piece of advice that I feel like I capitalized on the time, but I didn't really know it, was something that Bentina Terry shared with us last year, was be bold. And don't be afraid to ask. And so unbeknownst to me, the chairman of the Pensacola Chamber at the time was one of our clients who would come in to get his haircut once a week. And I had heard kind of through the grapevine that there might be an entry-level opportunity there. And I took it upon myself to introduce myself to him, to put my best foot forward, and to ask if he would set up an informational interview with me for the hiring manager. And it was the best opportunity I had to explore that and to be curious and to really discern if that was the right fit for me at the time.
No, you're absolutely right. It is about being bold and being brave and getting out of your comfort zone. And everybody has a different standard for what is their comfort zone, what they define as brave, what they define as bold. What may be bold for one person may not be bold for somebody else. But yeah, in fact, I never thought that I was going to go into television. I thought I was just going to be a writer. So for newspaper, I was like, well, who gets paid to write? I don't know. I'll just go do journalism. And so I ended up in television. I'd get so nervous, like I'd be like, my neck would get all splotchy, and I'm wearing turtlenecks in summer. I'm like, why did I go into television? This is stressful. But it did get me out of my comfort zone, and then you feel like you want that next challenge if you want to inspire yourself to grow. So I was grateful for that, because it did give me an opportunity to get out and meet people in communities and really see how the community worked. All the different people that volunteered in different nonprofits or different organizations, meet people from different walks of life that I never met growing up in middle-class Jacksonville, Florida, in the swamps of Jacksonville, Florida, which I love. But it has definitely been a growing experience, I would say, because as a television reporter, as a journalist, you did a different job every day. You had to become an expert on some new aspect of the community almost every day. And I think that goes a lot into defining what interests you and finding out what interests you. And as a fashion, major, essentially, was there anything that you have found now in this career field that relates to what interests you about fashion? Because it seems like it would be two things that are far apart, but probably to some extent, it's about being creative and also building relationships. So I would think there would be some commonalities, and whatever your major is, even if your first job isn't necessarily in that realm, you're going to find some things that are common.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I feel like I did learn in the fashion industry was the relationships with vendors, marketers, wholesalers. That is so important. And I mean, even to this day, with the different businesses that are in the chamber, personal relationships, they are the most important things that I think you can use as opportunities, but also you form genuine relationships that will be with you for the rest of your life. So I do definitely think that I used some of that, kind of still is important to me. Genuine relationships that I built then and now.
Yes, and do you see yourself staying in this path for several years, or do you feel like that you never know what opportunity may come up? Or do you have other goals?
Yeah, I mean, you don't ever know what's going to happen. I think we change, over time. What's important to me right now may be different in 5 years. So, I mean, I'm always going to be open to change and opportunity, because the times where I've been the most scared are the times I've grown the most. So.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about when you're in a job that you didn't necessarily want, and perhaps you are out of your comfort zone. You're not in that position yet where you're like, "Ooh, I got this." You're like, "What do I have? I don't know what I have. I don't know where to move from this point." Be a star where you are. Jennifer, I remember we had that conversation when we were first discussing our topic. How do you do that?
Oh gosh. So I think it's always that balance of never losing sight of kind of that future vision of where you see yourself and want to be, but recognizing that the best way to get there and to open up opportunities is to really be the best you that you can be for the period of time that you're in and for the place that you're in at that time. I know that my boss, Jennifer Grove, who's also been a great mentor to me, shared that was one of Susan's pieces of advice to her, and I think that's kind of become a signature saying for us at Gulf Power in many ways, to really excel and focus on learning as much as you can for the role that you're in at the time, and opportunities will present themselves.
That's right. If you do the best you can with where you're at, and then you never know what may else interest you as well.
Yeah. I'm laughing. I'm thinking about a story. So when I was in Baptist in the marketing department, I had gotten to a point in my career, it was about then, it was 2009, 2010. And when you're really good, when you feel like you're really good at a certain aspect of business or industry, and mine was marketing, you'd hit all these home runs. I mean, it was like everything I was turning to would touch to gold. I had the Midas touch. I've always felt like it truly came from a good place because I just like people. I think everybody has something to offer. It's funny, Sarah Brown, who works with me back in the back, we were talking about that the other day as we have a new team member coming on. One of the things that we teach new folks is everybody has something to offer, no matter what. And so when I left marketing, I went into the women's services service line business, what put me in a little bit more operations. It blew my mind. And I'm talking like it was self-esteem warfare every single day, okay? I mean, self-esteem warfare, because I have gone from one industry within healthcare being marketing to this different role in operations. A little business development ended up being more operational. And how I got the wins, it was some of the same methods with the people, but it was a different dynamic in terms of the types of people. I had to work with nursing every day. They scared me to death. Okay, and I know I've got some nurses out there. Katie Hanley, where are you at? I mean, it's just like, they bring life into the world, and you're like, how am I going to go talk to them to be like, hey, can we add on 2 more inductions today so we can get a couple more deliveries this month? I mean, it was just petrifying. And then I started to, instead of working with these service line leaders that praised me for all my efforts, I'm working with these doctors, and I was just like a piece of ground meat, and my energy and happiness and willingness to really push the needle forward and do good things wasn't always, it didn't always get that feel good because the stakes were different. And so what I realized in that position, going back to, it wasn't that I was unhappy in the position, but I put the wrong expectations on myself. So for 3 years, I mean, it was like a cry fest every day. And your mother always tells you in dating, when you break up with somebody, it's going to feel better in time. And you're like, whatever, you have no idea what you're talking about. But it's the truth. It's the truth. It's now when I look back, it was one of the most tumultuous times of my life. It was, my self-esteem had been at the lowest point it had ever been. I thought, I'm not really good at this. And what I realized was I set the wrong expectations at the end of the day. And so if you're in a position and you're going, gosh, this doesn't feel good, I'm not good at this, you've got to ask yourself, have I set the right expectations? And then if you haven't, you've got to reevaluate that. Otherwise, all this wonderful talent and energy you could be bringing to the table ends up getting a cloud over it because you're self-conscious or because you're not hitting that home run and you're just hitting it double. Doubles are good. Take those doubles. It's okay. Take a single. I'll take a bunt these days. I mean, can't believe I gave a sports analogy. So yeah, again, going back to Jennifer, feel around, see what you want to do. But just like Chantel, you might go into one thing and go a different way. But remember, if you're in a different area now, have you given yourself the right goals, the right feel goods? Because you can still deliver, it's just different.
And are you evaluating, is this a stepping stone, or is this something I'm going to grow to love and I want to commit to? And if it's a stepping stone, then that gives you an idea to say, okay, maybe it's not going to make me cry 5 times today. Maybe it's only going to make me cry 2 times today. Yeah, so exactly. You go from there.
I was going to add on to Ashley. When you're discovering what you are passionate about and what you're good at and your skills are, it's important for you to really develop that. Professional development grew for me like a lot over the past 5 years. You go through school, you do the curriculum, you do the thing, you go to work, you get the job done at the end of the day, but it's like, what are you really passionate about? And mine was training and development. I'm still able to do a little bit of that when we get new hires, so it's not just straight on marketing. I talk to people and good, but I'm able to still train and help others to see that potential and give back. I've always been taught to be hospitable and to be humble and to be modest, and to be able to just see that and know that at the end of the day, and you was able to assist. There's some people that are, want to hold it all for themselves and don't want to see others succeed. But I enjoy when people come and ask me questions, and I'm able to be that resource for them and give back. My first job, I was a sandwich maker at Blimpie. I don't know if y'all knew what that was, but it is a sub shop. And me and my sister, actually, that's our first jobs together. This is my sister down here. And I was a sandwich maker. Started off, 16, making, $6.50 an hour? And within 2 years, I was a general manager over 3 of their stores at 18. That is drive. That is learning what you are good at. And training and development was that for me. And I still, no matter what I do, that is something that I love, and I'm glad I'm able to do with people.
And your heart is in giving all the time, whether it's professionally, also in your free time.
Yes,
And
in the
you do that quite a
community.
bit. You donate your time in the community as well. You volunteer quite a bit.
Yes, I do. Everybody asks me now, how do you do it now? Because I have a daughter and she's 7 and I work 40 hours a week. But it's all about you make time for what you want to participate in and
Your
what
passion.
you want to do. So there can be excuses. There can be, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so this. But, if you really want to do it, if you really want to pursue it, you will make time for it. And my thing is, we're very family oriented. My mom always said to help others. So anytime that I can, I'm involved in the community by ways of organizations, by participating in boards. And I know at the end of the day, it's not for me and my satisfaction. It's what I can do for others. I've given my last to, a homeless guy on the corner before. I've picked up people walking down the streets with no shoes on.
Yeah, me too. I like
before.
that.
And my mom was like, Chantel, why'd you do that? I'm like, because it was late at night and she didn't have no shoes on. I was like, you're gonna get a cold. And that's just me as a mom.
But it is about setting priorities, isn't it? Especially when you have a heart for giving, and you do give in so many different ways, whether it's that or whether it's me and watching criminal documentaries. Then, how do you prioritize what your time is? Being a mom, and even if you're not a mom, you still have things that you care about that you want to do. How do you set those priorities? Go ahead, you're going to fix it.
I guess just seeing what's more in the deadline, putting the one at the top that has to be done first. Get that one out the way and get it done. Set those daily reminders. Put it on the calendar saying, hey, by this time, this needs to be done on this level of that goal that you have set. I know it may be like, hey, that's annoying, getting it. But for me to get up in the morning and get my daughter to school on time, I have 3 alarms. 3. Wow. It's 6:15, 6:45, and 7:15. We need to be out the door by 7:15. And my sister can attest to that. She's like, hey, Chantel, y'all, hey, what you doing? I'm surprised you're still here. And if you have a goal and you want to get it done and you want to set those priorities, figure out the one that you have to get done first. Get that out the way and then move on to the next. It's all about, you set that to-do list, right? And the next day it's going to come back. Did you finish that to-do list? No, you have a lot more to do this day too. So it's about getting it done, letting people know, hey, I'm working on it, I'm going to get it done.
Setting boundaries.
And then just go for what you know.
And you brought that point up too, Jennifer. And I would love for you to expound a little bit to those folks on the conversation that we had before about that. You talked about how before you were a mom, it actually was about relationship building. And we talked about how you build relationships at work. And sometimes it's with your coworker that you sit next to. Sometimes you might see them at the water cooler. And that's how you maybe built your success at your career. Well, when you become a mom or maybe something else takes up your time and becomes a higher priority, you don't have that time to spend necessarily to build those relationships. So you've got to be a little more itemized and budgeting of how you spend your time and how you build those relationships in different ways, if you will, or whatever your priority may be. So if you don't mind, talk a little bit about that.
So for me, there are two different dichotomies that kind of come to mind that I wrestle with on a daily basis. And it's urgent versus important. And how do you differentiate between those two? So even though there might be something that's really urgent, like last week we didn't have milk in our house for 5 days. And it was kind of urgent that I get that for my kids. But really, what was more important was me carving out the 20 minutes to read my son's bedtime stories at night. And so sometimes the things that are most critically urgent have to come first, and other times you have to focus on what's really important in the long term, you know, if you're looking back 5, 10, 20 years down the road. And then the other thing for me is the balance, and I would say that in the past decade, I have been really bad at this, and I recognize that I have developmental opportunity, but people versus process. And so I think in some ways, motherhood has exacerbated that focus on process and on doing, because I just want to do my work and put my head down and get it done so that I can go home and be present with my kids. But in doing that, I lose the opportunity to really build relationships and gain knowledge to really what's far more important than my inbox, and that's the people and the teammates that I get to work with. And it's a lot easier said than done, and it's hard to do. But there was a friend of mine the other day who reminded me, when you put the people first, and I think people fall in that important category, then the process is that much more powerful because of it.
Chantal?
I wanted to piggyback off Jen. I believe you don't get anywhere without the people that's in your corner and your support and your friends from long distance, your family, and so forth. And I wouldn't be here without those people supporting you. My daughter's 7. She's my number one supporter. We talk on the daily about what you did today and how you know, how'd you get over that accomplishment or how you get over that problem, and it's like, oh, I forget she's 7, you know. But I definitely, with me being involved, I want to be that role model for her, and I brought her to different meetings that I've been in. If I knew I couldn't drop her off or I had enough time, I brought her food, I brought her a little thing, her pad, and she would sit there during that meeting. I did take time off from school and getting volunteering and so forth from the age she was born until she was about 3. So I had that time of being able to spend and help her grow and be that one-on-one. And I can see that difference of that one-on-one time, truly being able to come home after work with no meetings and be there cuddling with her. And we still make that time on Saturdays. We go to breakfast, we do that, and so forth. And I don't know, it's just making that balance of being aware of your present. And yeah, you set those goals for the future, but don't forget where you are, like right now, and being involved and being focused.
Well, Allison, as an emerging leader, and I know you're not drawn with the family priorities yet, but it is tough, I would think, too. I mean, and I remember those days when I didn't have a family, and my job is everything. And, you know, you get up in the morning, you go home at night, you live it, drink it, breathe it, because it's fun and exciting. Right. But at the same time, you do need a support system. You do need an outlet other than your career. You do need to find those people that are going to encourage you in your well-roundedness of your life and not just one area. Is that something that you struggle with?
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you're first starting out, you know, anything that is asked of you, you immediately, yes, yes, yes. You know, you don't really know when to say it's okay to say no, and I think sometimes that's how you get burnout easy and stressed, is when you are going, and not taking time for yourself or your family, whatever, you know, your priorities are. So that's something I definitely had to learn, how to say no when it's appropriate instead of always saying yes and doing everything for everyone else.
How did you get to that point?
I probably got burnt out, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for me, I find myself yelling at someone, and I'm like,
I'm tired, I can't go.
I just figured that out last year, so.
Still figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, I still struggle with it.
It is, and I heard Oprah call it the disease to please. And I think that's very true. You have to learn what's important to you, and sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to say no to someone else. and it's more important to set those boundaries so you can save a little bit for yourself to give later. And I just think it's interesting that in your career field that you do get to interact so much with the public, and it would be easy to make that your social life as well as your work
Well, it
life, but
is,
you do have to
yeah.
have some separation.
Well, it does. It's easily blended because a lot of my friends are part of my networking with work, and that's when I have to okay, I need to turn it off because I'm so used to being on
All your
all day, all
conversations about
night,
that.
yeah. So I have to remember to take time for myself too.
Excellent. And Ashley, I know it's a challenge for you being a working mom too, but in some ways, I think also when you get into a place where you're comfortable and you do, how do you continue to challenge yourself where you are?
That's a good question. When we talk about growth, and I think it's Sheryl Sandberg in the Lean In book, and Hong and I talk about this a lot, there's the ladder of growth, and there's the jungle gym of growth. So, for me, in terms of that challenge, if you ask me that question, what are you going to do in 5 years? I'm going to blink at you for a minute because it's not, and I don't mean that I don't have goals, but it's not about a position or title. It's about, am I going to continue doing the things I like to do, okay? And when I say things that you like to do, it's things that you are good at, but things that you also aren't good at that you could get good at if you challenge yourself. Then it'll become something that you actually like to do at the end of the day. For me, and continuing to be happy and grow, one, it's surrounding myself with a good team. I've had a lot of positions where it's just been myself, and I'm responsible for my own outcomes, right? We can rock and roll that all day long. The big challenge, and for me, it's actually been a big joy. I actually feel more comfortable in my skin now at work with my team because they are what makes my workday joyful. They're the ones that I can take criticism from and not want to go into a corner into the fetal position and rock. Because there is such a wonderful respect there in terms of where I got to, not trying to figure out, did I figure out this financial part about how our business works? Did I figure out this angle and get in this new book of business? Now it's gone to, it's not that these people like me, they respect me. That was very eye-opening for me, I would say, over the last 2 years because, yes, I want to grow and learn new things, but one thing that I realized that I need, or I thought I needed in my life, is to be liked. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. I think anybody in here is very much a type A, and so you're very extroverted, and so a lot of times my cup would filleth up when I felt people were engaging me and like me. It's not about that anymore. It's about being respected and you being able to respect that person back. So when you talk about what's next in my career and how I'd fulfill, there's the process parts and there's the, do I want to be a vice president one day and what does that really entail? I want a work environment that I can go in and be respected, that I can have open disagreement with people, and that I feel like I'm actually making a difference and serving a purpose. Now, do I take care of patients directly? No. But I work with a team that tries to make accessing our care great. And they're the ones I can go in, they call me the squirrel, okay? I'm not even kidding you. You can ask them all. I have a picture of my squirrel on my office door, and let me tell you why. I will get so excited about an idea or initiative, I can't stop. I'll start standing up and whiteboarding, and it's like, oh, she's got the markers out, geez. But you can't teach that kind of passion. And so I seek it out and put it around me. Okay, I can teach you skills. And so my career move is continuing to find those people that have that passion and give them that platform to go where they can go. Because at the end of the day, yeah, you want them to stay with you forever and you love them, but if they stay with you forever, you haven't done your job. So that's where it goes to next. Once you get that job where it's not just about you anymore, it becomes so different. Now, it is challenging in a different way because it's almost, I don't want to say they become like your kids because that's different because they raise me just as much as I raise them. But you have this indebted responsibility to other people. And when you talk about making relationships don't always happen a one-to-one, but the relationship happens when somebody's watching how you interact with other people. At the hospital, some of the most important people to me are the people that are in food services, plant operations. They run the world. and they're good people, and they are just as important as everybody else.
You're exactly right. It's interesting when you do make a change in life, whether it's expected or unexpected. It's about also managing your expectations, as you mentioned earlier, and defining success with where you are. And for me, I would say when I made my job change, it was a whole different animal of work that I was having to tackle. So it was this thing, I don't know what I'm doing. Why did I ever do this? But now it's comfortable because I have found that balance to some extent that I'm looking for. I think it's a constant challenge for everyone. But at the same time, you find that it's worth the wait because it broadens you, and it broadens your definition of yourself too. You find out that you can survive whatever challenges come your way, personally or professionally, and that you can grow and succeed where you are. And so it becomes about defining success for yourself too. What does that look like? And that's kind of a tough question. We batted that around a little bit before, and it's okay to know that that's going to change. It doesn't have to be one permanent definition all the time. Success for you maybe this week or today may just be, hey, I hope I can make it through and get my daughter dressed with bow shoes on out of the house, but or maybe it's another thing. Maybe I'd love to write a book in 10 years or whatever the case may be. Allison, how do you define success at this point in your life?
I mean, for me, it's if I'm staying true to myself and, I wake up every day and try to find the positive and have a positive outlook, that's successful to me. I mean, I know that'll change in probably 2 weeks, but right now I'm just trying to find the positive and stay true to myself.
Yes, and it's not exactly always an easy thing to do because you're just trying to figure out what do I enjoy about all of this.
Yeah.
Yes, or where do I want to go? Exactly. How do you define success, Jennifer?
So I love how you opened it, Molly, that success is relative and it's fluid. So the way that I would have defined success 5 years ago is probably very different than I would now, but something that I feel like I've tried to anchor myself in is something that Maya Angelou said, and she said success is liking yourself, liking what you do and how you do it. And I would even expand that beyond just liking what I do and how I do it, but also empowering others to like themselves and to like what they do and how they do it. And I think that definition of success can really transcend whether you're talking about your professional hat that you're wearing, your personal hat that you're wearing, and it really speaks to the whole person I want to be when I talk about defining success. So if I am really fulfilled in what I am doing, but it compromises how I'm a mother and a friend and a daughter, then I don't really think that I'm focused on success in the right ways. And so I've had a significant evolution in thinking, and I know I have a lot more to learn in that regard, but if I can anchor myself in not forgetting that I'm more than just a two-dimensional person, and it's in what and how I fulfill all of those areas of my life, I think it can be really grounding.
Absolutely. And it does go back to some of those points, actually, I think that we heard of the previous panel discussion, being self-evaluating, checking in, am I really happy with how the day went or what was going on one way or the other, positive or negative, and how to define that. Chantal?
With success, people think of it as an easy way to get up there. It's a different path for everyone. Whether it is the greeter at Walmart, you don't know what they did before they got there. If they decided to do that, to them, success to them probably is they are there greeting us at Walmart. I feel like it's not keeping up with the status quo. It's really your unique, your genuine self and staying true to that and making those goals and figuring out what you want to do. And at the end of the day, my daughter's smile to me is success. So any of that simple measure from setting those goals at work or in your personal life and with your significant other, I'm just saying, all that comes into play. And success is different, failures, trials and tribulations, any and all that comes with it.
And you bring up a great point. I think that we are under a lot of pressure, especially in this day and age with information and social media. Everything's so accessible and everybody's putting their best face forward out there in the social media world that we can't even help ourselves but compare and say, well, they look so happy and they look so great and they, I just must suck, But
I think everybody puts only good things on Facebook. I would hope so.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't think they
Right.
do their dirty laundry on Facebook.
And if they do, I want to know about it. I tease, but there's a whole other issue there for sure. But no, you're right. And I think that that's something to address. We have to be able to be honest with ourselves about what our limitations are and to applaud yourself on the back just for doing what you do every day to a certain extent. Ashley, how do you motivate your team? Because you're in a position where you also manage and lead other people as well. How do you do that? How do you bring them up and keep them motivated and encouraged?
I get out of their way. Again, I think Steve Jobs said it best, why hire good people and tell them what to do? You hire good people so they can tell you what to do at the end of the day. And, I hope I'm answering this right, team in the back, but I think to motivate them, one is to show them the skills that they didn't realize that they had. They know they're there. There's things they know they're really good at, because we all feel that way, right? There's things that I know I'm really good at, but there's other skills that sit there that they're not as confident about. But if I have the ability to bring those out, and it gives them a more rounded feel in terms of who they are as a person, that's success. That's motivation. Motivating is not, go get that business, you can do it. It's not that, because if you do all the other stuff around interpersonal relationships, the business comes. I think Alexis said it best. You don't set the goal for, I don't know, getting those reports done or whatever. You try to work on those behaviors with your team that helps achieve that outcome. I think what's motivating for them is they get to see their successes and outcomes in a way that a lot of folks around our system don't necessarily get the opportunity to do. I almost sometimes feel, or I get nervous that I don't give them enough platform, and they'll be like, "You're helicoptering us right now. Slow it down. We appreciate it, but I value them so much. And I always want them to feel that and understand that and have the organization see it. Because that's the other piece. Motivating them is not just about what I've done for them. It's when a Mark Faulkner, who is the CEO of our hospital, writes them a handwritten note to their house going, "I really appreciate you working on that initiative that hard this year." That wasn't me. I didn't ask him to write that note. He saw their works. All I did was give him a platform. That's really what I hope, y'all. I hope that's how my motivation works. It's not making it about me. It's about making it about them.
Right, and about effective communication. And I'd like to go back to something that was discussed earlier as well in the previous panel, is about the importance of asking. And especially if you are an emerging young leader, especially if you are in that first job, maybe you're thinking about taking a jump, a leap into something else, or maybe there's a career position within the company or the organization that you're already with that you want, but you think, I'm not really good enough, or I'm not really sure if I should ask for that. I remember when I was a beat reporter, I thought, I wouldn't mind trying anchoring a little bit. Maybe I could do the weekend anchoring stuff, but I just didn't have the confidence to ask. And also, I felt like, I'm doing good as a reporter. Why aren't I being offered this opportunity? And that was an immature way of looking at it, because I think I mentioned it to a coworker. That coworker mentioned it to my boss, and he came to me. He's like, "Why am I hearing this from other people?" He said, "Why can't you just come to me and say, I want to anchor?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I thought you were going to ask me, Yeah. But that's silly. So at any rate, it's a growing thing. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there, even if they said no. They said, and he did a couple times. He's like, "No, you're just not ready. Your earrings fall off when at least you expect it," or something. That really has happened. There's just, your neck turns all weird and spotchy. There aren't enough turtlenecks in the world. So, you have to be willing to take the good and the bad in order to grow. If you are passed over for that opportunity, and there's a young man down here, we were talking about it before we started, and he was saying, some of the challenges he's faced in his position, and it is about getting that feedback and putting the ball back in their court instead of just being resentful that perhaps you've not gotten the opportunity that you want or that you've been passed over. You have to say, okay, what steps can I take to further this? Can I go to my boss and say, I felt like I really wanted that, but I didn't get it. Why didn't I get it? What can I work on? Then you're putting the ball back in their court and saying, I've come in that way. Hopefully the next time an opportunity comes along, you can say, hey, I'd like to put my name in the hat for this. I've worked on these things that you mentioned. Is there anything else I can work on? Or do I need to look elsewhere, kind of a thing? You have to evaluate it case by case, but those are difficult decisions, and it takes a certain level of being, again, brave and bold and confident. And Allison, do you ever find that those were some challenges for you, especially when you first started off? Because you do manage people as well.
Yeah.
And as a younger woman, that can be a bit of a challenge.
Well, it can. My staff is small, but it's from 26 to 87 years old. So that was hard for me, of coming in and, okay, I'm managing, people ranging from younger than me to older, way older than me. But I do think it's important to know that I'm still learning. You can still learn from your peers, your colleagues, your coworkers on a daily basis. I'm still learning from my 87-year-old volunteers. So I think that's important to always keep in mind, that you can still learn off of everyone else. You're not necessarily going to know everything or always be overqualified for a position.
You're respectful of the people that work
Yeah,
for you.
exactly. I think that's very important, is respect and, showing them that you're there to help them as well.
Chantal?
I wanted to, women think they have to be perfection at everything, right? Going into any job that I've ever done, I'm like, I gotta do it. I gotta do, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do. And you get bogged down and you need to ask questions. You need to say, hey, how did you do this before? Don't be afraid to ask those questions. And maybe they're judging you because you are. But I think it's better to say, hey, I need a little help. I think
I would hire you for that.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what you look for. That's what you look for. I mean, the fact that you have enough humility to go, I don't know it all. That's what I want to
I
work.
had to learn that.
That's what I want to work with, because now you've got enough confidence to admit that, and so you're not going to go shoot off the hip and hope this works. You're going to ask. And to me, that's valuable.
Moldable to a certain extent, too, and you're willing to be a team player.
And what I think that also articulates, I think, is something that you said earlier, Ashley, is when you have that curiosity and are willing to ask those questions, really, to me, what that translates is the passion that you have for whatever that new interest might be. And so sometimes just by asking those questions, if you're interested in a new opportunity, can translate into exactly that.
We would love to hear from y'all. Please let us know if you have any questions. There's a microphone up here. Or if you feel more comfortable just standing where you are and can really holla, then, then that's fine too.
Oh, good.
Okay, cool. So this question is kind of in the context of startup and being a creative entrepreneur. How do you become that emerging leader when you're in a role that you absolutely adore, it lights you on fire, but you know that you are needed in a leadership role, and that is really what ultimately you're destined to do, but you're dealing with that heartache and you have to let go of some of that stuff that you love and just change your mindset around it. So I just wanted to know, like how you cope if you're in a role that you love but you know you need to be a leader, and then some of the mindset that you grow into.
Would anyone like to start, or I can jump in?
Go ahead, B, and then you think.
I think when, it was a tough decision for me to leave Channel 3 after being there for 18 years. And after my daughter was born, I was a new wife. My dad had passed. I was taking care of my elderly mom. She's a much older mom when she had me. And so in my new role, even though I knew up here that I'd done it for all the right reasons and it was something that I felt like I needed to do, I still missed the passion, being in a job that I had a passion for. And what I found was that I had to give it to God, and just say, hey, open up those doors that I should walk through, and help me to find that purpose with what you've given me now. Because I've got this beautiful daughter, I've got my precious mom, I've got this husband that, most days he's precious, but I tease. But it's all challenging, and it was and they were all positive changes that I had wanted in my life for a very long time. Not the passing of my father, obviously, but to have that closeness of family and to build that. And I think it was just about, again, it sounds so cliche, but it's about appreciating where you are and what you've got, because there's always somebody else who's got it, who's still struggling with that challenge. And I found that it really gave me so much more confidence than I ever had. I knew if I can do all this and be happy with where I am, then I can be happy anywhere. And I'm not defined by a job. I am defined by the people in my life and how I feel about myself. So I would say that's how you be a leader. You just trust that if that passion will come for something else, or that you will build towards that, and you're going to grow and expand and find that there's going to be so many more opportunities, things that you never dreamed you could do that suddenly you're doing, and that thing that you love is not going to be the only thing you ever love.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something you're going to love there, you just don't see it yet. But there's the fear of making that change. I get it. I as spontaneous as I can be, I like knowing what I'm doing each day. I like coming in and knowing the role. And again, being in a healthcare system, even though I don't understand healthcare, I've done a couple different roles. But you have to go in just knowing I felt a lot better in this role, but I'm going to feel better. I've just got to give it time. It's the patience virtue. I'm terrible at it. Terrible. I work on it every day. But if you can give yourself some slack and patience to build that joy up in the new role. And here's the other thing. You don't, if you get there and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Go do something else. It's okay. We're going to make mistakes. it is better in your life when you can make a mistake and handle it. You know, we're all going to make them. If somebody who I work with makes a mistake, it's not about the mistake, it's what they did from the mistake. That's the true sign of where you're going to go.
And I think anything that I've ever done, I've learned to take a little bit of what I did before, and it's still helping me to today. So it's not like you're going to put that on the back burner. It's your passion. It's going to stay there. But I also believe, don't try to reinvent the wheel. If you can look someone up or network or seeing someone that wants to give back, I'm pretty sure like they're established, they want to tell how they got there and just pick their brain. And I know that helped me with having a mentor, many mentors, peer mentors. I mentioned Nicole St. Aubin, Hong Tran here, my mom, my sister. It does help. So you don't have to give up on that passion.
The only thing I'd add to your question about passion, Christine, is how can you maybe take that passion and package it in a new way and plug it in a different pocket of your life? And I think to one of my closest friends who used to work professionally at a running store, and after 10 years of doing that, her passion for running was just gone. She didn't have it, and when she found an opportunity to move into leadership, she was scared about letting go of what she knew was at the root of that passion, but when she was able to kind of take that and plug it in a different way, it was reinvigorated in her life in a much more meaningful way. And it didn't mean she had to let go of it. It was still there, but it in a way added more meaning because of that transition.
Allison, did you ever dream you would have passion for something new?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was going to go off of what you said. I still have passion for interior design and fashion. I just do it now just personally on my downtime. I design layouts of my house just for fun. And redecorate, go to TJ
Come to my
Maxx. Like there's
house.
still, you can still find other ways to find your. I would actually, just
Okay,
for
it's on,
fun.
girl.
But you can still use your true passions in other ways, not necessarily your career.
So from the audience, do you think college is preparing students and giving them the tools they need to be successful in a real world setting?
Who got out of
So-
college last?
This one right
This
here.
Okay.
I do. I think one thing I wish if I could go back, I would have done more internships, worked more part-time just to get more real-world experience. I think that was one thing I didn't really understand the importance of when I was in college. Like, yes, I knew it was important to do an internship, but not much as far as how valuable that would be to use for my entire life. So I think it's just stressing. Sometimes students aren't going to get it because I didn't get it, that it was that important. But I mean, I do think with the mentorship programs and everything, you know, utilize that. That is so valuable. That will be valuable for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
I would add to that, I think it's all about the application that you take from what you're learning in a formal setting. And I think back to following your point, Allison, I got my degree in public relations here at UWF, and one of my favorite courses was in crisis communication. And in theory, I loved crisis communication, but I didn't really know that until I was interning in the summer the BP oil spill hit for Collier Merrill and Great Southern Restaurant Group, and I was on the Fish House deck at 3:30 a.m. with Joe Scarborough doing a national broadcast trying to figure out how in the world do we tell the story of Pensacola's resiliency amidst this crisis. And so that experience was able to take what I learned in the classroom and really bring it to light and help solidify that everything I had learned was exactly spot on. I just needed the experience and the understanding and the context for how to do it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Problem solving.
I'll be quick. I believe, you know, you go to school, it's curriculum based, there's learning, there's, you gotta do this agenda. But what happens after you graduate is all up to you. You could start the last semester, the last 2 semesters, like you said, internship, experience, gaining that, doing volunteer work, whatever. Any and all of it is valuable. But I'm a proud believer in education. Trade school, if you want to do that, you do that. But for it being, does it prepare you? You have to add a little bit more. After you do the work and the writing and the admin and the paperwork and all that, what you choose to do next, you have to add.
And you're right. I remember because I am a UWF graduate, and I came up through their communications and broadcasting program, and it was the internship program that opened up the door for me to work at Channel 3. And actually, my first job was at their sister station in Fort Walton at WFGX. And I saved my last semester for nothing but the internship because I knew I wanted to be able to devote to nights and weekends and however much time I needed to do. And I was like, you want this story when? like, well, how soon do you want this? So it was eye-opening for me, but at the same time, it did give me the chance to get to know the business inside and out and how it really worked, and it did open up a job for me that I enjoyed. But I also felt at the time when I was in school that I was getting the skills that I needed. And I also felt simultaneously that to an employer, whether I was going into broadcasting or something else, they also just want to know you're willing to put the time and the effort in. That you're committed to being successful, to showing up every day at your classes, to getting your work done, to getting that degree. Because nobody's going to ask you, were you summa cum laude for the most part? Not in broadcast television, certainly not now. But I mean, for the most part, they want to know,
exactly right.
are you willing to put in the time and the effort? So I think that to a great extent it is about, you do get what you need, but it's also what you put into it and what you take out of it.
I have to add on, though, you've got to do the internship, and here's why. When you're doing the schoolwork, you get the foundation. I'm almost going to let's call it process. Once you get into the internship and now your environmental changes, now you have situational context, that's where the rubber meets the road. So you get to take all this great stuff that you've learned, but now you get to put these uncontrollable variables around you called people and coworkers. And that becomes a lot different. I interned with Gulf Power Communications. It was awesome. John Hutchinson, Steve Higginbottom. And granted, I was PR, but I learned about electricity and how to interview forestry folks. And so what that taught me for my PR, I knew how to write, but I also knew how to work my different audiences. So then I got to put it in context. Talking to John Hutchinson was a lot different than talking to one of the gentlemen that was working the lines and doing the forestry cut down. How did I work with that? How did I apply that skill set? So the situational context is very important, but the education is the foundational piece of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, here is our next question. How do you respond if you realize you have made a mistake or messed up something important? And
Own it.
I know it. You have to own it.
Fail
I
forward.
did it this
Tough,
week.
though.
I won't go into it, but I owned it. I felt terrible. You own it. Like I said earlier, it's not the mistake. It's what you do after you've made the mistake. I have watched people's careers be pulled out from under them because they could not own their mistake when they could have simply owned it. And it is unfortunate because you have that power of choice. And sometimes you might have made a mistake that you feel you were a victim of circumstance. It doesn't matter. You simply own it. You are better for it.
You own it and you propose the solution and you take lead on implementing it too.
And then learn from it.
Yes, and I think there's so much pressure, again, going back to your point earlier, Chantal, about women being perfectionists, and especially in an environment, especially if you're new, you don't want to mess up. You want to be perceived as knowing what you're doing and as somebody that can be promoted or that can work their way up the ladder. And it is difficult to you second guess, well, should I say that I did, even if you're caught red-handed with a mistake, if you will, then you're like, oh gosh, should I make an excuse or should I just go ahead and own it? And Ashley's right. I mean, it's like pulling off a Band-Aid, you just get it over with, go ahead and own it. And it also shows that you've got a certain level of maturity. And for me, learning how to accept responsibility for mistakes was also just, learning that it really wasn't so much about me. I didn't have to take it so personally. It was okay to say, yeah, you know what, I messed up, and if it's the end of the world, then this is an opportunity and not an obstacle. And so it's tough. I remember Amy Remington earlier when she was saying that she didn't mind being wrong. I was like, well, you're a better woman than me. I never want to be wrong. and it's hard. It's hard when you to admit making mistakes. But the more you do it, and I make plenty of them, the easier it gets to roll with it.
And you get respected more. You
Yes.
earn that. My mom taught us you give respect to your elders. I was brought up, in a Christian household and so forth, and love my mama. But all in all, I feel like you get respected more. You own up to it, say, hey, what can I do to improve? And just learn from that and do better and move on.
How do you juggle multiple challenges at any time? And I guess that goes back to, again, managing expectations and setting priorities.
Yeah, I'm still figuring that out.
I know, you're right. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think it does change from day to day. Yeah. It just depends. And remember, we had talked about that before. You have the family basket maybe one day because there's events going on, and then you have the friends basket, and then the work basket. So it's about shifting those things to what you need to do where you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's why I think the term work-life balance and managing those priorities is just not realistic because who really wants balance. I'd rather be content and whole and blended. And to your point, you just have to remember that sometimes you have to pour 99% of your water in one bucket, and then the next day you're going to have to pour 99% of your water in the other bucket. My son had the flu and the stomach bug and 2 ear infections in the past 4 weeks, and I've had to pour a lot of water in that bucket. But in the next few weeks, I'm going to pour a lot of water in a new challenge at work. So you just have to be willing to be able to discern that and keep top of mind what's important.
Being flexible is
Yes.
you think you can plan every little second of the day, but it don't go like that. So it's just being flexible, and that's it.
You know, this next question is a loaded one, especially when there's so much conversation in the media about millennials in the workplace. And I'm a Gen Xer, so apparently we always get annoyed with millennials, and I'm just here to say that's not true. I
read the other day, I'm an exennial. Apparently this exists now. I'm
You're on the
1980.
cusp.
I'm in the cusp. I'm cynical and I can save the world.
And that's why we're friends.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with the generation gaps in the workplace? And Allison, I'd love to start with you on that, because you talked about managing the 87-year-old woman that was there as well.
I think it's important to learn their skills, learn what they're good at, and, put confidence in them. Communication is key, direct communication. And like I said, you really can learn from each other.
What does direct communication look like?
Literally. Literally.
I want you to do this.
Yes.
Or how do you word that?
It's funny. One of my volunteers, she's 87, and she asked, well, where's the Wi-Fi? I don't know where it is. So it's just, you have to bridge. I think, oh, you know what Wi-Fi is, so you have to bridge that gap.
But you come down to, I won't say come down to her level, but you meet her where she's
Yeah, I'm like,
at.
oh, see, this projects a signal, and we all have internet now. That's as simple as I can say
And
it.
you invented it.
Yeah, I invented it.
We have an office of about 20 employees, and there's a range of age 21 up to, I don't want to give them older than what they are, but older women, more established.
Older than 21.
Seasoned.
And I think communicating directly and we do a lot of things through email. My job mostly with marketing, I send emails. And email cannot it may sound differently. So it's like, hey, in this email, let me go and talk to them, so there's no confusion after that. And just learning who they are and figure out how is it best to approach them. I have to go in there with a cheery smile to be like, hey, let's open up with this, and then go to that negative. And so just learning those people. We have an established seasoned woman around the office called Nana. And her name is Becky, but we all call her Nana. And she had to get to that point where she was able to have those, relationships with us for us to be able to build and consider her as a Nana. So.
It's so funny you asked this question. So my mother's, she'd probably kill me if she knew I was going to tell you her age, but I'm going to tell you, she's fabulous. So she's going to be 66 this year. She's a social worker at Sacred Heart, been there forever and ever and ever. And she works the team of women that she works with are mostly my age now, in their 30s and 20s. And it was so funny because my mom is just, I can't even explain it. Anyway, so she told me the other day, she's like, Ashley, the girls your age at work, they're huddling up and they're not really talking to me. It blew my mind that she brought that up to me, because I'm like, Mom, you got the confidence of a rock star. Why do you care?
Yeah.
And it was funny because I had to use empathy with it. So it's more too about giving perspective. I was like, here's the deal, Mom. I said, sometimes I feel that way about the guys at work. Hong and I talk about this too. I reminded her, it's not that they're ignoring you, but they have probably life things going on right now that are in the similar path, whether it's the kids are young or they're trying to figure out how to get that MSW, whatever it may be. So my mom is taking it personal, but it really wasn't personal. And so just being able to empathize back with, let me tell you where they're sitting right now, and then the vice versa. Hong and I, she's in the front here, when we used to work together in the planning and strategy division at Baptist, when you work with men and women, I love the fact that Susan's story went to gender parity because it is important. So you just don't have to think about it. But let's be real, we live in the Southeast. It's there at the moment, okay? And so oftentimes we worked with a lot of wonderful gentlemen colleagues who they'd be, like after a morning huddle, they'd be over there talking football and jokes and stuff, and you're just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, Hong, who played last weekend, and what was the score? And so, I think it goes back to whether it's the generations, whether it's the guy-girl thing, it's just being able to empathize and go, it's not really us, it's just when you go toward a certain like group, that's just natural, and you just have to be aware of it and talk about what it really is versus what it isn't.
Again, going back to the direct communication. All right, well, we are wrapping things up. We have about a minute left. So briefly, we had discussed talking about what our latest book was that we had read, but I think in this digital age of different ways of expanding our knowledge, it may not be necessarily reading books that we all enjoy. There may be other things. So, Allison, how do you expand your mind these days, or what challenges you or encourages you? What's your outlet for that?
Well, I read a lot of articles, like online. On Forbes, they have a lot of good articles. Bustle, I don't know if BuzzFeed.
I love BuzzFeed.
I do too. So they have a good range of career, fun. So that's how I kind of expand my knowledge, or just Google it if I have a question.
Google's for every investigative reporter in the world.
Exactly.
Jennifer?
And I feel like there are those times where I just want that outlet, to listen to something creative or nonfiction or fiction and just a story. And then there are times where I really want to be motivated. And then there are times where I just want the hard facts. And it probably depends on the context of my day or what's going on at home or work. But for me, podcasts have been an awesome outlet to listen to while I'm getting ready or on the ride into work. And I've been really hooked lately on Harvard Business Review's Women at Work. It's an awesome podcast that has some really tangible, great takeaways. The one I was listening to this morning was about how what you wear articulates kind of who you are. And then there are also times where I found myself really just craving authenticity and just some raw, honest realness among women. And there's another one called Everything Happens by Kate Bowler that I have been really hooked on lately. So 2 good ones.
Obviously, I'm a healthcare junkie, so I'm industry nerd all day, every day. I mean, if it's happening, I have to know. So what's funny when you ask about what do you actually go to, I cannot lie, I am bad at reading books. I'm going to be the first person to get up here and actually be honest that, I can get going and I'll never finish it. So if it's not on Audible or my team can't fill me in on the rest of it that they read, I have to be honest, I have to read things in chunks. I'm a short essay kind of person. So going back to Harvard Business Review, I really like it because it's short essay driven. I also sign up for a lot of industry publications that send me push listserv though. So sometimes I forget to go look, but that gets it in my face and then it'll pull me down a path to read it. So anytime you're trying to grow your skill sets on something, whether it's leadership or the industry you're in, seek out those technology outlets that can also push to you, that you don't always have to pull, and then just know how the best way for you to consume that learning. Again, I'm not a long-form book learner. I want a case study. I want a visual. I want a WebEx. Everybody just learns different. So that's kind of how I do. And I love to play Candy Crush. I will not lie. It is my checkout moment of the day.
I'm kind of on the same page as Ashley. I like to multitask when I'm doing things, so whether it's cooking or getting ready in the morning or on the way to work or whatever, I do TED Talks, podcasts, YouTube, Goalcast. One TED Talk that I like is Angela Lee Duckworth. And talks about grit and having your passion for perseverance and so forth. And Hong Chan, I know we've been mentioning her. When she was PYP president, she presented that to us when we were on leadership, and it stuck with me 2-3 years. So that's one that I love. And then also, if you just go to YouTube and type in Dream, if you type in Dream, and it's the one with Will Smith's face, like his profile face. I can't pronounce the dude's name that's on it, so I just know it from that one. I listen to that on repeat in the morning all the time, and it is so powerful. I get something different from it every time, but Dream.
Excellent. Well, ladies, I think that wraps it up for us. And I want to thank you guys so much for being such a wonderful audience and being so attentive. And thank you, wonderful ladies, for sharing your
Thank you, Molly.
experiences with us today.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure for us to be at this conference. And I hope the rest of the afternoon is wonderful for you.
Thank you.